Women's Institute for Leadership Development. My name is Brighton. Right, so today we want to unpack the issue of delimitation. Look at how far have we gone with delimitation. We want to understand delimitation from different stakeholders. Can someone please mute their mic at the moment? Right. So we want to understand delimitation from different stakeholders this afternoon and understand how far are we with the issue of delimitation. So we're going to be joined by a number of panelists this afternoon. One of them is going to be Stembiso Kupe. I see she's joined here from ZEC. She's an officer at ZEC. I see Mbonisi Nkoma as well from BOPRA, Secretary for Youth in Award 16, as well as Ndodana Ndlovu as a field officer in Matabeleland and as well as Midlands. And lastly, we're going to be joined by Marvelous Chuma, the ambassador for Albinism Connect program. So without wasting much time, allow me to hand over the mic to Stembiso Kupe from ZEC to kindly tell us about herself and what she does at ZEC before we just start our engagement. Ma'am, over to you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Brighton. I'm Mrs. Stembiso Kupe from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. I'm the District Elections Officer for Bulawayo. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much for that. I see we have Mbonisi Nkoma. Mbonisi Nkoma, please unmute your mic and tell us about yourself and what you do before we go to the discussion this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. I'm Mbonisi Nkoma. I'm a youth representative for Bulawayo Progressive Residents Association, Ward 16. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I'm still trying to see if I have Marvelous as well as Dotana. I can't see them. If they are there, please do go ahead and introduce yourself. Marvelous and Dotana Ndlovu, are you there? I can't see them on the participants there. All right, so as we wait for them to come through to this Zoom meeting, let me give this platform to Mama Stembiso Kupe to tell us about the issue of delimitation process. What does it mean to the ordinary Zimbabweans? We have seen over time people reading about different stuff, but please try to break it down in an ordinary, simple language. What is delimitation? What does it mean to the ordinary Zimbabwean? Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Brighton. Good afternoon, participants. Thank you for allowing me to be with you today. These days, what we are doing is the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is what we call delimitation. Delimitation is the process of demarcating electoral boundaries. We are talking about polling areas, that is from section 22A of the Electoral Act. It provides for the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to demarcate polling areas, that is allocating people, registered voters, to voting areas. Then from the polling areas, we demarcate the wards, ward electoral boundaries. That's using the polling areas, we build the wards. Then from building wards, we move on to build the constituencies. The process delimitation is provided for in section 160 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, that in every 10 years after census, ZEC delimits electoral boundaries. It goes further to say the electoral boundaries is the constituencies are 210 that are given by the Constitution. Then subsection 2 of the same section provides for the wards, that the Commission also has to demarcate ward boundaries. The ward boundaries are given to ZEC by the local authorities. They are the ones that determine the number of wards for each local authority. So that's what delimitation is all about. The Commission started working on this program towards the end of the year, last year, in preparation for the full process to commence this year. Those who saw the gazette, the government gazette, it advertised that the process had begun and it ends on the 31st of December. So the delimitation process is informed by the numbers of registered voters. And the voters' roll for the same, the delimitation process was closed on the 30th of May, meaning that all those people who registered before and on the 30th of May are in the voters' roll that is being used for delimitation. The figures for Bulawayo, I'm only going to talk today about the polling areas and the wards. The figures of our province as Bulawayo is 270,929. So our constituent, our wards remain 29. That's what we got from our local authority, and that's what we are working with. So what we have started doing now, we've started marking the polling areas, and we have already proceeded to mark the ward boundaries. And how are we doing that? We say 200, that's the formula that I'm going to give you, 270,929 divided by 29 wards. So our threshold then becomes, the average is 9,343. Our maximum, that's a plus 20%, becomes 11,212. Our minimum, that's 20% minus 20% is 7,474. What does this mean? It means all our wards are supposed to be within the threshold of 7,474 and 11,212. Anything more than that is not allowed. Anything less than that is not allowed. It's not a ward. So what we have done, for those who are lucky enough to have seen some of our figures per ward, we realize that some of our wards are far, far less than 7,000. In some of them, for example, Country Park is 24,000, meaning that it has ballooned. So what we do, we come down and we make sure that we share the voters so that we remain within the threshold. So the limitation is, it has just come to address those issues of ballooning and the issues of where some of our wards have very few people. Like our Ward 1 had 5,000 voters. So we have to address that. So what we have done is currently, we have started with sharing our voters, and we have already started moving some of our boundaries. For example, our Ward 1, we have started moving. I will just update because I believe most of the participants here have attended our stakeholder engagement meetings where we discussed the criteria, we discussed the legal framework, we discussed quite a number of things and what delimitation is all about. But today, what I'm going to do is just to brief you or update you on what we've already started doing and where we are now. Currently, we have started demarcating our wards. And I said, for example, our Ward 1 had very few people, 5,000, and we had to push it to 7,474. So what did we do? We moved the boundaries. And in Ward 1, we included the suburbs. You know, some of you know that suburbs was in Ward 3. So we have moved that to Ward 1. We have gone into Bradfield, that was in Ward 5, and we have moved it to Ward 1 to build a full ward. So the areas like Milton High are now in Ward 1, King George in Ward 1, and I said the whole of suburbs are in Ward 1. Then we move on to Ward 2. In Ward 2, the voter population was adequate for that ward to remain as it is, but it had short a little. So we removed Umgusa Primary, those who know Hopeville along the airport road. We have removed that part, and the other parts of Ward 2 remain as they are. Then we have gone to Ward 3, and we have looked at Ward 3, and we have added into Ward 3 Umgusa Primary, the Hopeville area. That is where we removed Kumalo, King George, St. Thomas of Aquinas, Bradfield. Then we added Umgusa Primary to Ward 3. Then we left Ward 4 as it is. We went to Ward 5. Ward 5, we took some of the areas from Ward 6 because we had already removed areas like Bradfield from Ward 5, and we've added them to Ward 6. So Bayview, Southworld, Montrose, Newton West, they are now in Ward 5. Then we have moved to Ward 6. You'll realize that when we talked about Southworld, Montrose, Newton West, and others, we were destroying Ward 6. And now, because of the numbers, all those people have gone to Ward 5. And we have pocketed our Ward 6. Then, pocketing our Ward 6, we have decided to move that ward to our biggest area that has got the highest number of voters, registered voters. That is Ward 8. And we are dividing Ward 8 into 3 wards. The pocketed Ward 6 now goes to Ward 28, which is going to cover Luveve High, Hlalani Kuhle Pechea 1 to 5, Happy Day. Those are polling areas. They are going to be covered by Ward 6, which has taken part of Ward 28. Then we move on to Ward 7, where we added this Dojiwe and Palm Green to build up the population for Ward 7. Then we move to Ward 8. We left it as it is. It had good numbers, so we left it as it is. Then Ward 9, we left it as it is. Ward 10, we removed part of Zulukandaba households. Those that built Zulukandaba B, removed them, but the rest of the ward remains as it is. Then we have gone to Ward 11. Ward 11, because it was it had few numbers, we took from Luveve 5, and we took Luveve 5 and added it to Ward 11. That's Emakandeni. There's Bofu area, shopping center, and Percy Eaglestone. Those have been added to Ward 11. Ward 12, that's Onjuve. We have taken the Zulugandaba that we removed from Entumbani, added it to Ward 12 to build up our numbers. Then we removed Lopengula Secondary, part of Lopengula Secondary, that is Lopengula Extension, from 12. Ward 13, we added the part that we removed from 12, that's Lopengula Extension, to Ward 13. Ward 14, we left it as it is. Then we went to Ward 15 and 16. We took the 15 part, most of the part, 15 part, and joined it with 16, so that they build one ward. Because of the numbers, we combined, we merged 15 and 16. They gave us only one ward, and we said that ward is Ward 16. But then we pocketed Ward 15. We took the pocketed Ward 15 to the other part of Ward 28, building another ward in Ward 28, where we included Tlalani Kuhlepecha 6, Kumaten Zayota Housing Office, Country Park Primary, Country Park Secondary. We took part of that, then Tateku. Then Ward 16 remains as a merged Ward 15 and 16. Then Ward 17, it remains as it is, but the numbers were few, so we had to take part of Dumezweni B and Venture that are at the border boundary of Ward 17 and 27. So we took some from Ward 27, part of Dumezweni. Ward 18, we left it as it is. 19, we left it as it is. 20, we had very few numbers, and we had removed Kelvin West, that is the industrial area. But to build up Ward 20, we borrowed from Pelandaba West, Glendenning, and half of Premier High. That is taking from Ward 27 to build up Ward 20. Then 21, it was very big. We removed Chabalala Extension and half of Sabangana Shopping Center, Then Ward 22, we took what from part of Ward 24, that was Kulumane, Kumapukutwana, Salvation Army, one way Lapana, half of Kulumane High, brother, and that part which is always been Kulumane, but was in Ward 24, we have taken it back to Kulumane. But in Ward 22, we removed Mandwandwe, Mchane, Gombe areas. Ward 23, all from Ward 22, the ones that we removed, Mandwandwe, Mchane, Gombe, are now in Ward 23. That's to build up Ward 23, but all the other parts of Ward 23 remain the same. Then 24, we took from Ward 25, places like Agape, Manondwane, Childhood, Keta Library, Holy Family, half of Nkulumane High. We took them to build Ward 24, where we removed those Mapukutwane Salvation, half of Nkulumane High, Keta Hall, Keta High, Mkanwini, we removed from Ward 24. Then Ward 25, we took those that were left out of Ward 24, Keta Hall A and B. That is where Keta 24, we took what Keta 6 and 8 and 7. They are building Ward 24. Then get 8 and 9, building Ward 25. Unketa Hall, Unketa High, Umganwini, Open Space, Tower Light, Zayot Mkiqiga. Then Ward 26, we left it as it is. 27 was very big. That's where we removed Pelandaba West, Glendenning, half of Premier, Dumezweni. We moved them to Ward 20. Then the rest remain as they are, Ward 27. Then Ward 28, you remember we've removed part of Ward 28 to be Ward 6, the other part to be Ward 15. Now, Ward 28. Ward 28 remains as Mahlatini A, Country Park Terminus, those areas, Kitika, Country Park B, part of it, TM Hyper, that's the part, the areas that are going to be Ward 28. Then Ward 29, we left Ward 29 as is. What I have just given you is what we are still working on, and we are engaging quite a number of people who have engaged the political parties, we have engaged the CSOs, we have engaged youth, PWDs, and women. Tomorrow, we are engaging the sitting councillors. We are giving them the same information that we are giving to you, because Section 37A of the Electoral Act requires ZEC to do delimitation in consultation with its stakeholders, so that together we move. And at the end, when we come up with a report and the final boundaries, we are together, we understand each other. Then before anyone asks a question, I would like to say or request that we be open-minded to say currently we have got electoral boundaries, but because of the figures that we have, most of them had to be moved in order for them to qualify to be the wards that are required by law within the threshold that I gave you first. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, that is what we have done, and that is what we are still working on. We are going to talk about the constituencies after we have finalized our wards. So today, let's just focus on wards and polling areas. Then we are going to engage again when we talk about the constituencies. So thank you, Brighton. That's what I have for you today.
Thank you so much, Mama Cooper, for that. That was Tembiso Cooper, officer at ZEC. They're giving us a breakdown of what they're currently doing. As you said, what they're engaging different stakeholders as they do delimitation. Quite mouthful there, while she spoke about the issue of delimitation, what they have done. It was a threshold, 9,343, and then the maximum one, 11,212, the minimum being 7,474. It's quite interesting, and also how they've moved suburbs, Brownfield, Milton High, King George into Ward 1, and also criminal minor wards where they have also created other wards. Allow me to bring into this conversation Umbonisi Nkomo as well as Sukoluhle Mhlanga on the issue of service delivery or community development in relation to delimitation. Is there a connection between community development or service delivery improvement? Is there a connection between those things and the delimitation? Let me give Mbonisi Nkomo from BUPRA, Secretary for Youth in Ward 16. Mbonisi, good afternoon. Welcome to this Zoom meeting. What's your reaction to what Mama just presented? And also, is there a link between what delimitation as well as community development? Over to you, Mbonis, before I go to Sukoluhle.
Okay, thank you. Yes, there is a link. As you can see that some of the wards are being sucked into other wards. meaning that is, as far as I'm concerned, you're having a councillor that's to be chosen and working for a certain ward, depending on whether they know the councillor or the councillor is well versed with the area when it comes to resources and enabling the community. I think that will be more of a challenge, especially to an area that the councillor is not well versed with the place.
Thank you so much, Mbonisi. If you are done, are you done?
Yes, thank you.
All right, let me go to Sokoluhle. Sokoluhle Mhlanga, please unmute your mic. I want to hear from you. What's your reaction to what Mama presented? The which has been divided, and also trying to link issue of service delivery with delimitation. I'm going to open the platform for other guys to ask questions. I see their questions now being typed chat box. I'm going to open the platform for you to ask questions. Sokoluhle, please go ahead with your contribution this afternoon.
All right, thank you, Brighton. Allow me to say that yes, there is a link, taking into consideration that Country Park has been the biggest ward in the city. So the issue of delimitation to us as the community of Country Park and Bulawayo is of advantage. We're now going to have 3 councillors. We are now a constituency. So when it comes to service delivery, I feel there is going to be a huge improvement as the sections are divided to an advantage that one councillor is able maybe to cover a certain area when it comes to service delivery. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Sokoluhle, for that, of letting the Country Park. It's quite also interesting what you spoke about the Country Park, because Country Park is one of the biggest areas in Bulawayo. So let me go back to Mbonisi before I go to Mama Lapana. Mbonisi, let me come back again to you, sir. Let's talk about the delimitation in your ward. You are part of Ward 16 under BUPRA Secretary for Youth. What role are you playing in your ward as far as delimitation is concerned? What are you doing to educate our residents in your ward? Do people have enough information about these changes? I know it's difficult to just adjust, but do you think people have enough information? What are you doing there as a BUPRA Secretary for Youth in terms of educating about delimitation? What do you see?
Okay. For one, I feel it hasn't been enough, since you know that we would have to liaise with SEC, especially when discerning information downwards. We'd have to follow certain rules, because we have to get information from SEC, and whatever information we have to discern to people, we also have to verify with SEC. So looking at the time space, the time frame, we didn't get enough time to actually sensitize everyone and for everyone to know what's happening. Because if you look at the census and considering the numbers of people registered to vote, it doesn't tally that much, meaning to say many people didn't or do not have much information on what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mbonisi, for that response. Let me go back to Sokoluhle briefly before I go to Mama and open the platform for others to have a discussion. So, Sokoluhle, as you go towards elections today, there are 73 days left, I think, in the year before we go to the next year for elections. So let's talk about challenges faced by PWDs as you go towards elections, and what your experiences during the by-elections or the past elections. What are the challenges that are faced by PWDs, and what can be done? What are the comments you can put now on the table to ZEC and to CSOs? Over to you, Sokoluhle.
So yeah, the challenges that are faced by persons with disabilities when it comes to electoral processes is lack of disability-friendly information. Voter education information is not friendly to persons with disabilities in their diversity. I once attended a stakeholder meeting where ZEC was saying they have tried to incorporate Braille in the information that they are providing. But allow me to express that disabilities are diverse. Let's not forget about the deaf community. may we avail information that is crafted in audios, sign language audios, so that we also target persons with hearing impairment. Then the second thing, I think as Zimbabwe, we lack policies that foster the participation of persons with disabilities in the electoral processes. The Constitution is also silent when it comes to issues of participation, whereas we have the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which has a clear article in relation to participation of persons with disabilities. So it's Article 29 that talks about being involved, persons with disabilities being involved in electoral processes. So I don't know what we can do, but it's high time we come maybe with a position paper or that speaks on the participation of persons with disabilities. So yeah, the article is clear. Disabled people have the right to take part in politics, as same as others. You know, we should come up with a position paper that is very clear when it comes to participation of politics. You know, I've been having conversations trying to come up maybe with challenges that are faced by persons with disabilities when it comes to engaging in politics. We can't run away from Uguti. You know, our political cycle in Zimbabwe is so very toxic when it comes to violence as all. And it is now mandatory as well. In as much as we come up with the position paper, political parties should come up with disability-friendly policies so that they attract, so that they embrace persons with disabilities to participate. Yeah, let me end here. The recommendations, Brighton, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, ma'am. Go ahead with the recommendations. Now, what can you put on the table today to
As for the recommendations, you know, information, I base on disability friendly languages so that we target everyone. I'm a person who believes that information is power. You know, as people with disabilities manage to get the information, I think they'll be able to take part in these electoral processes. You know, I always say yes, we can't run away from politics. Politics is where decisions are made. So as persons with disabilities, if we shun away from politics, people are going to decide for us, of which it's very difficult for you to decide for a person with a disability when you do not have one. So let's craft policies that favor the participation of persons with disabilities. Let's adopt what is being said by the UNCRPD so that we increase effective participation of persons with disabilities in politics. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Soluto, for highlighting those things on the issue of language being used there. In terms of avoid education, they must use language which is friendly to everyone, right? Issue of braille, touch on the issue of braille. Even the voter education material must be in braille format. I love that. And also in other areas, there are no wheelchair ramps where you can go and vote. There are no wheelchair ramps. So something that can be taken into consideration by Zach there. Mama Cooper, let me bring you back into the conversation before I open up the discussion for other people to join and ask questions to you. Let me ask on the issue of delimitation and voter registration. We have seen last week, Zach released the total number of people who vote. Right, there's Bulawayo, there's Matebele North, there's Matebele South. Parliament numbers are as compared to other areas. I was quite adding Bulawayo, Mat North, the South. I was adding the numbers. Number one, it remains higher than those three areas. Would you say should you be worried as Bulawayo or Matebele North? Should you be worried as Bulawayo, Mat North, and Mat South? Are going to lose some constituencies or what? Should you be worried about that? And also trying to link between delimitation and voter registration. Try to link those things. Over to you, ma'am. Mama Coupe, please unmute your mic and go ahead to the contribution. We seem to have lost you there. Let me try to check ukuthi usasekhona. Yeah, usasekhona. Angimuzwa ngapha kimi. But your mic is muted. Please try to unmute your mic, ma'am, and then siqhubeke nge-conversation yethu. Angimuzwa. Tafatso, can you hear him? Tafatso, liyamuzwa?
Yes, I can hear you.
Umama uKhuphe liyamuzwa?
I think she was put it out for. I'm sure your network issue. Let me try and get in touch with her.
All right.
All right.
Okay, cool. In the meantime, as we wait for Mama Cooper to come and join us, let me open the plenary for other people to ask questions. I'll jot down those questions. When she comes back, she will try to respond to those questions. Please, guys, do raise your hands. I will recognize you, and then you can go ahead with your contribution. I see Eliad Kufuma, Losondlan. I had two guys. Let me start with Eliad. Eliad, please go ahead with your contribution or question this afternoon. Eliot, I can't hear you as well. I think the problems with network there. I can't hear you, Eliot. Ukhona umuzwa Eliot ongayisimi ngiyathi network yami. Ukhona umuzwa Eliot.
Will that sound? I think it's a network, or maybe his mic has a problem.
Let's try Sondlane. Sondlane, please go ahead to the question this afternoon. Socks, go ahead with the questions. Or it seems to be facing the proper network. Let me go back to Mbonisi Nkomo. Mbonisi from Bupra, from Ward 16. We heard Mama Lapana speaking about the areas which are cut now, divided into other wards. What's your reaction to what she was speaking about, the issue of delimitation? What in other areas they've tried to put other wards into, like for example, Ward 1, spoke about Brownfield, the suburbs being fed into Ward 1. What's your reaction to what she was speaking about there on the issue of other wards which have been cut and divided into other wards? What's your reaction to that? Mbonisi?
Sorry, please come again with the question.
I was saying, what's your reaction to the presentation, Mama? She was speaking of areas where some wards have been cut, but divided into adding into other areas where there was spoke about the issue of thresholds, 9,343, and spoke about 11,212 being the maximum, and the minimum being 7,424. What's your reaction to that presentation in other areas where wards have been cut and also adding other wards to other wards? What's your reaction to your presentation?
Okay, I think it goes on to show what I was just talking about and what I was saying, that the number of people actually registered to vote, there are actually a few people, meaning to say not so much or not so many people have been sensitized on this issue of delimitation, and this has led to some wards being sucked in by other wards, and also you'd realize that at the end of the day, when it comes to resources, people will be actually complaining at the end of the day that we're not getting such and such resources at the end of the day. And the problem is being on this, that people didn't get much detail on the delimitation exercise and what it entails at the end of the day. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Mbonisi, for that contribution. But also as a young person, I see a lot of young people there as participants here. Tariro, I see you there. I want to ask from you, I asked this question to Sogoloshe on the issue of PWDs, and she touched on a number of important issues. I want you to add on some on other issues that maybe she might have left behind, Tariro, there, on the challenges faced by persons with disabilities as we go towards elections. What have you experienced during by-elections, and how much challenge that we face? You have seen other areas, polling stations, there are no ramps for our wheelchairs, the issue of the braille. What are some of the challenges that you have faced, Tariro, as a voter, as someone who's a young person, and also how are you accessing this information in terms of delimitation? Tariro, over to you. You have the mic, ma'am.
Thanks, Brighton. Can you
Yes,
hear me?
so clear, ma'am. Go ahead to the contributions this afternoon.
All right. Thank you so much. Firstly, I just want to say for the first time in, I think before I was born, 40 plus years, we've had, now we have a ZEC commissioner with a disability. So he's blind or visually impaired, however you want to identify him, which is a step in the right direction in terms of inclusivity. Something never heard of. So his name is Dr. Kudzai Shava. And I am hoping and praying that because of his disability, he will then push policies that matter, policies that we have braille ballot papers, that will have ZEC offices as part of the inclusive strategy, like ama-ramp into ezinje ngazonezo. But you talked about our challenges that we are facing as people with disabilities around the elections. So I asked a question, unfortunately I see Mrs. Kupe has left. She mentioned where I mean lapha emvotela khona lapha eMantshalini ukuthi singene ngaphi ngaphi. I'm already worried because lapha emsuka ngikhona siye eMantshalini ngokwi distance nyana. Sengisuka lapha sesiyavotela somewhere, guys, with the wheelchair, that's like that's like a barrier. Ngicina sengicabanga ukuthi vele lokuvota kwangikhona ugcina sokungasekho necessary. Mbonisi talked about indaba yokuthi there wasn't enough time to sensitize people. I feel that there wasn't enough time to sensitize people with disabilities, voters with disabilities, virgin voters with disabilities that have never voted, just recently turned 18, that understand their rights, that want to be part of these processes. That we were not given time to spread the word, to talk about the importance of these things. But since delimitation is very corner, what can we do? We can then now maybe lobby for a proper inclusive way. Sign language interpreter at every polling station, because when you go and register to vote, they highlight your disability. Low disability. So if there are 2 voters at Emantshalini disabilities, they know, ZEC knows voters among disability, so they can budget and set aside the budget for those numbers of voters that according to their disabilities. So besides challenges, I also feel even people that are pushing the idea of registering to vote post a delimitation, can we also make sure that we put the agency or rather mainstream in the Bayama disability voters amacha. People are willing to go register to vote, even if it means mali. Let's find a way where we can meet halfway with this ZEC, so people register to vote and feel included. Yeah, so if Mrs. Kupe comes online, so
Sorry, hello. To add on to hello Brighton, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, ma'am. Go ahead to the contribution.
Yes. To add on to what Sariro is just saying in terms of distance, I once raised that in a certain meeting, and I was told that the political parties, the organizations that are assisting you to go and register to vote now, currently, are the ones who are going to assist you when election time comes. Can you imagine? You know, persons with disabilities that are not active in political parties, are they going to be ferried to the election, to the polling station rather? So it's very difficult. We need clarity on that. We need clarity because it's a disadvantage. You know, we have young people, we have persons with disabilities that still not believe in voting, visit difference and all that. And as much as we are trying to sensitize them, so we'll let distance and are they going to go and vote? So it's a disadvantage. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tari and Zulfa, for raising that question on the issue of delimitation. Some areas are now divided. When we voted to Zane, but now you've got to walk, go a long distance to see a voter. But area to vote before it was closer to your It's quite interesting there. I hope Mama Kope can come back and try to respond to that question. I see I have Rumbidzai Mhlanga. Your hand is up. Please do go ahead with your contribution now. Rumbidzai, try to unmute your mic and go ahead with the contribution. Your hand was up. We seem to have lost you again. Rumbidzai, I see you now. Try to unmute your mic. I saw your hand was up and contribute. Okay, right. I seem to have lost our speakers there. Elliot, let me bring you back again. Just try your network now if it's working. Elliot Kufuma, please try to unmute your mic and go ahead to the contribution. All right, problems with the network there. Guys, if you want to contribute, please do raise your hand or unmute your mic and go ahead to the contribution. Quite interesting there what Tari and Zulu were raising on the issue of distance and also in the issue of sensitization of Abantu. There was less time given to educate Abantu on the issue of delimitation. But let me bring you back into this conversation. Abantu sometimes in other different areas, see you about delimitation. Let's come back to your 116 where you are. Do you think we have enough information? Do you think the youths have enough information about delimitation? Do you think we have enough information about water? Back to you, Mboniso.
Thank you again. I think some people have the information because it was given, especially ward meetings, but not so much youth are attending those ward meetings. You'd realize we only have the elderly attending those meetings. And then speaking of information that's passed through media, like WhatsApp platforms, we all know that people don't get to just read, especially if you are putting on a PDF or something for someone to read. I wouldn't say much of the youth get time to actually read that, whatever information, especially if they're not sensitized verbally. That's what I can say.
All right, thank you so much for that. I see now I don't have Mrs. Cooper back online. She's not yet back online. What I would do is I'll pick anyone who's a participant here, my list of participants, and I want to hear your contributions on the issue of delimitations. We all heard Mam Cooper speaking about the areas which have been cut, and also what is happening now in your ward. I mean, I was listening to my ward, how the divided went what. So now you're listening to your ward, what's happening there. So I want to hear from you guys, your reaction to your presentation, also challenges that we're facing there when it comes to delimitation, access to information. Tafato, I see your hand is up. Please do go ahead, say, with your contribution.
Okay, thank you so much, Brighton. Mine is a comment. I just wanted to say I'm seeing some questions coming through chat box from Eliad and Sondla Nedube. So maybe we can also share, we reflect on their questions as well. Thank you.
Right, let me try to read those questions that are coming in chat box. I have a comment from Rachel Voko. Yes, right point there. I think she was speaking on the issue of terror at the distance. The people we are busing today are going to bus them again during election. I don't know about that. Elliot Kufuma says, balance militars. Does this process have a direct effect on the polling station I'm currently registered at? Right. I hope Mam Cooper can come and join us back and then try to respond to that. Sorry, can says, what does it mean? Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. Elliot.
Brighton.
I can hear you. Say, go ahead to the contribution. Elliot, I can hear you. Please go ahead to the contribution. Yeah, he's facing some problems with the network there. So I was reading his comment on the issue what he was saying.
Brighton, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead to the contribution. Elliot, I can hear you. Please do go ahead to the contribution. we seem to be facing problems there with issue of network from his end. I can't hear him now. So yeah, Bekezela Mkuni, I see you there. Bongani, Elton, I see you. I want to hear from you guys. What's your reaction to what Mamkupe was saying on the issue of delimitation? Please do go ahead to the contribution or comment. Passmore, go ahead.
Okay, it's actually Elliot. I'm using Passmore's phone because I don't know what's happening with my phone.
Do go ahead, sir.
Okay, so the question that I had is, I think it's the same as the question that Sonjani asked, to say what does it mean? What does this delimitation process mean? I am registered under Ward 29, which they moved to I think Ward 20. So what does policy register, or I'm going to from?
Thank you for that question, Elliot. I'm reading a comment here from Mamkupe. Says she is facing problems with network. She can't join. So, what can we do now to get more responses? Tafatwa, what do we do now since Mamkupe is facing problems with network to respond to these questions? Tafatwa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I think we can open them to the floor and reflect. Sponsor Nguti, how best can we address some of the issues?
Right, thanks so much, Tafatwa, for that. Guys, if you have any response to some of the questions posed there, please do request. Please do request the mic. I'm used to extra spaces now. Please do unmute your mic or raise your hand, and then you can go ahead to the contribution or trying to answer to respond to some of the posed questions. Right. Guys, please do speak. Rombitsa says, I support what Sugu was saying. I think a lot still needs to be done looking at the issue of PWDs while doing voter education. I doubt if any of us could communicate in sign language, and we never had any material in Braille. So I'm thinking a lot of us still have to be done, including our PWDs. When they're concerned with the issue of voter education. So a lot can be done. That's on the chat box. So yeah, guys, please do engage what others have posted there. Some have asked on the issue of distance. Will I change my area corner if so cut you divide during delimitation? What needs to be done? And also, guys, is there a link between this delimitation and service delivery? Now Couchback is now 3 wards within a ward in courts. So will it improve service delivery now? Will you see better service delivery being put there in that area now that there's delimitation? And also, we have seen Matabele North, Matabele South, Lubulawayo, there are low numbers of founder Palisuku, but what can be done going forward to encourage abantu to Palisuku vote? Now I'm going to pick up Abantu now. Tsepang Tinar, I see your hands up. Please do go ahead and say with your contribution this afternoon.
All right, thank you, Dayton. Sorry, I haven't been really following because I was traveling and the network kept putting me out. But I'll try and respond to some of the questions, the 2 questions that I heard from you. So the first question was around the electoral boundaries that have been put in place by ZEC. Unfortunately, to have attended a meeting of this nature 2 days ago. So, what is going to happen according to what Madam Kupe said? She was saying, so those words that have been put together, because it is said that a voter must not travel more than 5 kilometers to the polling station. So for that reason, they are going to look for infrastructure that is there within that ward. Or if there is none, they are going to put a tent so that you don't find people traveling long distances. And the other thing that she says is that a polling station is expected to have at most 800 registered voters voting there. So when we realize that a polling station now has maybe 1,200, another polling station will be created and other people will be moved to that polling station. This is for purposes of running elections smoothly. So if we have about 800 registered voters per polling station, it makes counting of votes easy and issues of tabulation and all. Responding to service delivery, yes, having a what within a setup, because how to tackle the setup, and we are going to have 3 wards. To some extent, it will improve service delivery. But let's remember that the role of ZEC is to simply come with electoral boundaries, and that's it. People are chosen by the citizens. So it may not necessarily improve service delivery if citizens have failed to choose the ideal candidate. So it's a two-way approach. Thank you, Brighton.
Thank you so much, Sepang, for trying to respond to that. Yeah, on the issue of distance, or would say someone's going to be walking a long distance to their polling station. You raised on the issue that there's going to be there's a parameter that is said to go to Melubel between your house and your polling station. I see I have Jolene there says, I do not know if this is relevant, but I'm a bit worried. Ngama freebies given to people, especially towards elections. What do you feel or we have to say about that? She's speaking about freebies. What now? Political voter, we're going to give you this, we can give you that. Are they sustainable, those freebies? I'm going to give you a t-shirt, I'm going to give you transport allowance to go and political voter. Are those things sustainable? Or on the day of the election, are they going to do that again? Guys, what's your reaction to that? What Jolene has just raised on chat box in terms of freebies? Are those things sustainable? Let me go back to Sugo. So let me bring you back into this conversation again on the issue of freebies done by Abantu. Are those things sustainable? If you're doing it now, are we going to do them till the election? So over to you, ma'am.
Those things are not sustainable. Allow me to say that it's maybe a campaign mechanism just to attract people to vote for a certain maybe political party or a certain person. We know politicians, they are good at promising, 5 years down the line, so it's just a campaign strategy, nothing much. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that response. That's a campaign strategy, as you say, what is used by politicians to lure the vote. But on the day of the election, you don't see them anymore. Or after the election, you don't see them anymore. Yeah, it's quite interesting there. But guys, what's also your reaction to the numbers released by ZEC this week on the total number of our political voters? Sibalutshwane abantu abhalise ukuvota, eMatnot sibalutshwane, eMasouth sibalutshwane. Number it's going to total of those 3 provinces. Kayifiki kuHarare. Harare only own E1 ilabantu abaningi. But Bulawayo, eMatnot, eMasouth, if you add them on 3, our number doesn't what I reach even more than Harare. Want to take on the issue that what causes Bulawayo, eMatnot, eMasouth apathy? Why is there too much apathy in terms of these 3 provinces? Let me give Rachel Voko. Rachel Voko, please do unmute your mic. What's your take on the 3 provinces? Why do you have low numbers in terms of voter population? Rachel Voko, please do unmute your mic.
Thank you, Brighton. I think the reason why we are having very low numbers, especially this side in the areas of Matabeleland, I think the people believe that no much change is going to be achieved, or no much is going to be achieved, especially towards the elections, especially looking at the issues of Kukurahundi, to say the people from Matabeleland, the people from Blawayo, obviously if it's Matabeleland, which means Blawayo is included, Konalapo Pagat. So the people were affected. And if Kangela, like the things that like Katesu, like the incident which happened ngale Matobo, those were the results of Ikokuraun. So people are now scared if they register to vote, they will be in a way participating in elections or politics. People don't really understand like register to vote. It's a right rather than a political interest. So they do not have that knowledge to say registering to vote it's a right rather than a political interest. So they are scared if they register to vote, participate in political processes, and they are now in favor of the other party, which is not this other party, and then they in turn face violations. But however, I would like to say I am happy with what I saw. Pansy, like I saw young people doing in voter education. It's really good. So yeah, basically.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for that response. I see now Mam Cooper is back, part of the participants there. Let me give you a chance to respond to some of the questions that have been posed while she was facing problems with the network. Mam Cooper, welcome back. Utari spoke about the issue of Manchalime. Please kindly try to explain more about Manchalime, how it has been divided, and also spoke about the issue of distance. It was closer to Lapashana, but now so Kachana because of delimitation. Try to respond to those issues, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, I did not get most of the questions. My network is so bad. The issue of Manchalin, we said we divided part of Manchalin where we're taking Chabalala extension out of Chabalala to Ward 24. So the distance that is legally on polling areas, it should be 5 kilometers. If it is within 5 kilometers, that distance is allowed. So with us here in Bulawayo, we don't have longer distances than 9 kilometers.
Right. I think your question was around on the issue of what before there was delimitation. This is someone also will chair. We have Votila in the area closer to Lapashala, but now with the delimitation, it to be far from here. How will she reach that point? Is someone also will chair? That was the question. I think Tari, please, you can correct me if I'm putting.
Okay. What we mean by removing Manchalini, part of Manchalini to Ward 24, it does not mean the polling station relocates. The area is the one that has been has been bounded into Ward 24, but the polling station remains at Manchalini. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for that question, for that response. I have another question coming in from Swan Lani. He says, what does it mean then if you voter under a different ward whose area has been moved to another ward? Does it mean people need to re-register or realign registration?
No, what it means, thank you. What it means is that you are only you have been moved to the next ward, but you are moving as a polling station, and the households that were registered in that polling station will remain in that polling station. So there is no re-registering. What we are going to be doing again before the elections, we are going to be having these inspection centers. We are going to have the voter education. I heard someone say there is voter education in Harare. If you see voter education in Harare, That same is here in Bulawayo. We do the same, all the provinces. If there's voter education in Harare, there's voter education in Bulawayo. Currently, we've got voter educators in each and every constituency. We've got 4 voter educators, and they will continue up to the 30th. They are educating people on this. Then after our report has been gazetted and made into law, the new boundaries, what is going to happen is that there will be again extensive voter education to advise people of their new polling areas. And we will continue with our star 265 so that people can check on their names. But what we are doing now, we are removing the whole polling station and moving it to the next, to the ward. But the polling area remains the same, meaning that if you are voting at a certain polling station, but it is now in Ward 12, it will be in Ward 12, but the infrastructure will remain where it was. So it will be easy for you to get to that polling station. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much for that response, ma'am. I see I have another question from Big Timber. Says, I'm experiencing a bad network. My worry with the delimitation is the use of ZEC figures, which are way lower than the census figures. We need more awareness in terms of what education, especially in material land, and maybe in the future have an application that can allow people to register at the comfort of their homes, especially the youth who are now attached to technology. Ma'am, do you want to respond on the issue of Bulawayo, Mat North and Mat South having the lowest figures in terms of voter totally? Can we be in a world which we're going to lose more wards or constituencies because of the number of figures that we have now under political voter?
Thank you. I believe we are not supposed to be worrying currently. And I said today we are only talking about wards, and the wards that we're talking about, they were determined by our local authority. So there is no loss, there is no addition or subtraction, but they remain the same, though the boundaries are moving. So I don't think we
All right, thank you so much for that response. Tsebang, I see your hand is up. Do you want to ask a question to Mama there on the issue of delimitation and going forward, what can be done? Tsebang, do you want to ask something?
No, I didn't want to ask, but I wanted to try and respond around concerns as to why our numbers in Matabeleland are so low. And so we talked about campaigning. Maybe let me rather use 2 words, organizing and mobilizing. So for a very long time, we have been in a mobilization mode. We have not turned to organizing. So when we are organizing, that's where we sit down together, identify a problem together, talk about the problem, come up with values, come up with strategic ways of dealing with the problem. When we have done that, we now switch on to mobilizing. So the reason why we continue to see low numbers in Matabeleland is because we have not taken time to organize. We are quick to mobilize. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tsebang, for that issue on organizing versus mobilizing. We've been mobilizing as a country, but we have been slow in terms of organizing ourselves and putting our house in order. I want to political voter. That's why we see lower turnout of people going to register to vote. So maybe in closing, anyone wants to take ask a question before I close discussion this afternoon? Can I close anyone with a question before I give to Mama Cooper to conclude for us and close for us in terms of delimitation? Where to from here? What other stakeholders are they going to consult? Mama Cooper, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. What I can say is that at the end of everything else, we are going to have our report submitted in at Parliament. And after that report has been submitted, it has to be submitted before 6 months before the polls. That's the 2023 polls. So what we are doing now, we are just trying to be in time so that everything that we are doing now does not go to waste. Because if we don't meet the timelines, what it means, our report is not going to be used for the 2023 by-elections. But what we are doing now, we are making sure that by 31st December, everything is in place. And we are already, we have already covered, I think, enough ground to come up with the concluded exercise. And we believe and hope that our results will be accepted because we have consulted extensively. We continue to engage different groups for our consultations so that they are effective, and if our report goes to Parliament, it is accepted and we finalize the whole exercise. Otherwise, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for giving us this opportunity because we really need it. That is where we consult and discuss and see our way forward. And maybe to finally to Darilo and others, now we've got Commissioner Shaba, who is working on audio material for the deaf and dumb. Then we have got our braille that has already been, we've got the pamphlets now for braille. That is where the ones that we are using currently on the ground. And we have got a person who is able to read braille. She's doing that, she's moving around and she's changing constituencies so that she accesses all those that want to use braille. Otherwise, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks so much, Namukube, for your time this afternoon. She is the officer exec, district elections officer exec. Thanks so much, Mbonisi Nkomo from BUPRA, Secretary for Youth and Ward 16. And thank you so much to Sugoluhle Mhlanga for sharing more information about the issue of PWTs, challenge that they're facing when it comes to elections. Thank you so much, guys, for your time this afternoon. Tafatwa, over to you. We are done. Say, thank you so much, for your time.
Thank you so much, Brighton. Thank you to the provincial elections officer, Umama Uthembiso Kupe. Thank you so much, Sugoluhle Mhlanga. She's an advocate for persons living with disabilities inclusion. And a big thank you as well to all the participants for the active participation. This is one of our many discussions around the ongoing electoral processes to come. So we hope to engage you soon on further deliberations. Thank you so much for your time and hope to meet and engage with you on the next platform.
Okay.